We always think about the reason why a Vahana would want to be the Vahana or the vehicle of a particular deity. So let's listen to Nandi's story today. There was once a sage called Shilada. Shilada did not have any children of his own, but he adored children. He wanted to adopt a child, but he did not want to adopt just any child. He wanted a special child who was blessed by Lord Shiva. So he worshipped Lord Shiva for many years. Finally, Lord Shiva appeared before Shilada and asked, "What boon do you seek, Shilada?" "A child. I wish to have a child, Lord Shiva," Shilada said, bowing before Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva smiled and said, "You shall have it soon." He said that and he vanished. Shilada returned home a happy man, knowing that Lord would bless him with a very beautiful child. The next day, he went to the farm, and as he crossed a farm, he saw a beautiful baby in the field before the plough. The baby's skin glowed with a beautiful white light. Shilada stared at the baby transfixed. When he heard a voice from the heaven, "Shilada, take the child, bring him up well." Shilada was overjoyed as he took the baby home. He named the boy Nandi. Right from his childhood, Nandi was devoted to Lord Shiva. Shilada brought up the child with lot of love and care. He taught the child the Vedas and gave the child a good education. Nandi was a brilliant boy and learnt everything very fast. Shilada felt very proud of the child. Some years later, two sages, Mitra and Varun, came to Shilada's home. Welcoming the sages, Shilada gave the rishis some refreshment and asked them to make themselves comfortable. He then called out his son Nandi. Nandi came from inside the house. "Nandi, please make sure that these sages are well looked after." Nandi smiled and nodded at his father. "Yes, father." Nandi looked after the two sages well, and after enjoying the stay, the sages said that it was now time for them to leave. Before they were about to leave, Shilada and Nandi both prostrated before the two sages, and Mitra and Varun first blessed Shilada. "Have a long and a happy life, Shilada. You've made us very happy." When Nandi fell at the feet, the two sages looked slightly sad. Slowly they said, "Be well, son. Be good to your parents and your teachers," and they walked off outside the house. However, Shilada had noticed the change in the expression of the sages. He ran outside the house. "Great rishis," he said breathlessly. He turned around and made sure that Nandi was inside the house and could not hear him, and then talked to the sages. "You looked sad while you were blessing my son," Shilada said, feeling terrified, as he was thinking all sorts of unpleasant things. Mitra looked at Shilada with pity. "I cannot wish your son a long life," Mitra said softly. Shilada now looked in absolute panic. "What is going to happen to my son?" he whispered. "Your son does not," Varun cleared his throat and said, "does not have a long life, Shilada. I'm sorry," he said lamely, looking at the horrified expression at Shilada's face. Rishi Shilada stood transfixed for a long time. After a long time, he slowly walked back home with stooping shoulders and a broken heart. Nandi immediately guessed something was wrong. "What is it, father? What happened?" Nandi asked, vigorously shaking his father. Slowly and painfully, Shilada narrated his conversation with the two sages. He expected Nandi to be scared, or even that Nandi would start crying. However, Rishi Shilada was surprised when he heard Nandi laugh. "You were scared of what the sages said?" He was still laughing. Shilada wondered what could be so funny and looked at his son without any expression. "Father, you've told me that you've seen Lord Shiva," Nandi said with great devotion in his eyes. "Anybody who has seen Lord Shiva cannot be afraid of what the sages just said." Shilada still looked dumbly at his son, not understanding. "Father, it is my fate to die, then Lord Shiva can reverse my fate. He is the most powerful god and can do anything. Do you think he would let anything happen to us when we worship him? Nandi looked at his father challengingly. I don't think so, father, Nandi said softly. Shilada looked at his son as if he were looking at him for the first time. Slowly, Rishi Shilada nodded his head and smiled. Nandi bowed to his father and said, Bless me, father. Rishi Shilada blessed his son. Be victorious, my son. Nandi then went to the river Bhuvana. He entered the river and began his penance. His devotion was so great and his concentration was so high that Lord Shiva appeared almost instantaneously. Nandi, open your eyes, said Lord Shiva, tenderly looking at Nandi. Nandi opened his eyes, and before his eyes stood the most beautiful person Nandi had ever seen in his whole life. Nandi looked at the Lord, wanting to savor his very image. He felt that he had nothing more left to ask. If only I could stay with the Lord always. Shiva looked at Nandi with lots of love. Nandi, your penance was so powerful that it dragged me here immediately. Ask me anything, I will grant it to you, Lord Shiva said. Lord, I wish to be with you always. The words were out of Nandi's mouth before he could stop them. Shiva smiled. Nandi, I have just lost my bull, on which I used to travel. Henceforth, Nandi, you shall have a face of a bull. You shall stay in my home at Kailash. You shall be the head of all my ganas. You will be my companion, my vehicle, and my friend always. Nandi closed his eyes and his tears flowed through them. The Lord had granted him all his wishes and a lot more. Since then, Nandi became Lord Shiva's vehicle, doorman, his companion, and the head of all of Shiva's attendants, the ganas. Thus, by sheer devotion, Nandi was not only able to overcome his fate, he rewrote it completely.